Well, good evening and welcome to the Jamaica Mix. We've been on a little bit of a protracted absence over the last couple of weeks. Life happens. And so I just want to, again, apologize for the absence. But today we're going to take on a couple of topics. The usual thing with the Jamaica Mix is that we try to focus on the issues that are in the radar, if you will. Now, we know that national elections coming up, and as I'm saying, elections have consequences, and one just wonders, as to where the direction we are heading. There is also the situation as it currently applies with the US and Jamaica seems to set to lock horns over the issue of Cuba. And, always been a sticking point in terms of Jamaica, US, Cuba. That blend is always problematic. And so we're going to take a look at that issue. There is also the issue of the national stadium. If you're following this program, or if you have been a regular follower of this program, you would be aware that I have often commented on the issue of the redevelopment of the national stadium. This is our most significant public sporting facility in depending on the sports. It is referred to as the office. Jamaica has enjoyed significant positives from its track and field athletics program, and the source of this, the joy that the country as a whole and the public gets from our participation, all of this unfolds at the National Stadium. We see where the stadium track has been resurfaced, and the discussions as to where that now takes us in terms of the rating by the international World Athletic Federation and its rating of the Jamaican facility. We ranked as a class 1 track, which meant that we could in the past host international events, and there is some questions as to the status, and we're going to talk about that as well. And then, of course, it's the political season back home. It's the political season everywhere because politics dominate the discussion on a global scale. And so we're going to look at that. Now, you will recall that the former finance minister, Mr. Clark, Dr. Clark, who had flown the coop in Jamaica and gone to the International Monetary Fund as a deputy managing director and abandoning the portfolio that he occupied as the Minister of Finance. Now that portfolio has now been taken over or been handed to or filled, whichever one you're most comfortable with, by the former Minister of Education, the Honorable Favour Williams, Dr. Favour Williams. Let me give her title. No disrespect, but um, we see where Faval is making having made our contribution to the budget presentation because it's budget time. And again, there is a feeling that the current administration may be seeking to present what is commonly referred to as an election budget. And and in preparation for the general elections, which is constitutionally due by September of this year. There is as well a fair amount of uh, a fair amount of banter as to the possibility that the election may be called prior to September. But be that as it may, that is, that's a regular thing as far as Jamaica is concerned. Um, we have to take a bow as a nation. We have not had any negative issues with respect to national elections in Jamaica now for more than 2 decades. And it is a demonstration, in my mind, that as a country, we have matured away from the inter-Negroid violence that typically is associated with the way we practice our politics. That is not to say that there aren't, elements within the process that is sort of stoking that fire. But, to our credit as a nation, we have, avoided getting down to that kind of clashing amongst each other, and that's a good thing. Jamaica has a stable democracy. We have moved away from the violence and the ideological divide, which I believe is a large part of that. Of course, that brings some additional problems. You can't be a Jamaican anywhere, at home, anywhere in the world, and not be concerned about the level of participation in the electoral process by Jamaicans. I think the strength of a democracy is determined and maintained by the strength of the participation of the electorate. And we are at a point where it's just a little over 30% of the people who are on the ballot, who are on the registry of voters who actually participate. And that is not a good thing, because what it's saying, with more than 6% of your potential electors not participating, it could lead to some compromising of the elections. It becomes easier, for example, for those with ill intentions to interfere with the process to get a result that favors them. And so, we hear the argument about elections being bought. Plenty of money in a Jamaican election, no different from what there is here. But when you consider that, the cost of living, the standard of living, you consider that there are a lot of people in Jamaica who, while some may be working, they are not necessarily working at their optimum in terms of the optimal remuneration rate. And so all these issues serve to, when you don't have the level of participation, if you're only 30%, you divide that 30% squarely between the two participating gangs. So you're looking at just about 16 or 17% either way in terms of the split of the vote. And, with the kind of money that is in politics in Jamaica, it's not far-fetched that electors, or well, the candidates, the parties will try to induce the participation of the electors by paying them to vote or paying them for their votes. So those are some stuff that we want to pay attention to, and we're going to have more conversations on that as we go along. But to Miss Favor, now as part of her address, I think she addressed the in her presentation. She talked about a $2,000 that taxpayers are going to be getting back, or something to that effect, right? And she went on to suggest that taxpayers are beneficiaries, let's call it that, who, having received this benefits, a 2,000, if you're getting back that on your paycheck, you could, if you put on that 2,000 Jamaican dollars, every month. 2,000 Jamaican dollars in United States dollar terms is about 17 or 18 dollars US, right? Let's roll it up to $20, $20 a month. So if you put on that $20 a month, it's less than that. You're probably better off if you say $15, $15 a month. So if you put on that money every month, according to Miss Favor, the esteemed Dr. Favor Williams, that 2,000 Jamaican dollar, $15 US a month, if you save it for 3 years, you're going to end up with, what is it? According to her math, 72,000 Jamaican dollars. 72,000 Jamaican dollars. That is accumulated over a 3-year period. Now, keep something in mind, guys. Jamaica has been contending with inflation at a rate, estimated annual rate of about 6 to 7%. And so, what that is telling you, it pertains to the devaluation of the money that Jamaican workers are getting. So $72,000, if you between today is 2025, right? And you're gonna save that money till 2028. According to her, that $72,000 could give put on as a deposit to buy a little car. And she said, like, she's serious, in fact, Dion Jackson Miller had her on her program, and she went on to repeat it several times, as if to say, by repeating it, it serves as increasing her own conviction, because only she alone knows to believe that $72,000 can't deposit for nothing. Nobody now, unless you buy a bicycle, right? And so even if you're away 3 years, by the time that 3 year come, that 72,000 Jamaica dollar don't worth the even 60% of its present day value, right? So it kind of make you wonder how these people are thinking, because clearly, if you're the Minister of Finance and that is the way you perceive Jamaicans, then something wrong, right? And that Jamaicans need to be more ambitious, right? Because if that is the minister's idea of how an ambitious Jamaican would operate, clearly you believe then that these people's ambition levels must be very, very low, right? The parameters that you're using to make that assessment must be very, very low, right? Because $72,000 can't buy nothing. You can't deposit. You can't even, if you can't go up a court to go buy a fridge, then probably I'll run you out of a place, right? So, the point I'm making is the people that we elect, people that we provide reverence to, we give them all kind of accolades, all kind of pump up. And the truth be told is that I'm not really ready for that, right? One would believe that as a government minister in a critical ministry like that of finance. Remember these government ministers, and she at her level as a minister of finance earns about 26 to 30 million Jamaican dollars per year, right? Work that into the $72,000 where she asked somebody to save. That is not even 1 day of her pay, right? That's not even 1 day's pay. Eh? And so this is how you think about the electorate, which tell me you don't really place no value upon them efforts, and you don't place no value upon them per se either. And so, I'm not trying to tear anybody down. I am just asking that our elected representatives must have a realistic perception as to how people live. Because clearly, if this is the way you think, then the numbers and the way how you interpolate your budget presentation and its impact on the public, right? Because clearly, you know, see what the people on the road I see. A light bill, for example, easily around about $25,000-$30,000 a month, right? Light bill, electricity for 30 days, right? 30 days worth of light bill, right? Water rate, assuming that, and in Jamaica, the water not necessarily come through the pipe and breeze, but the people them still get a water bill every month, and water bill are running anywhere from say $15,000 to $25,000 a month, right? So relate that again to the saving if you put aside $72,000. So you clearly, Miss Minister, you don't have no idea, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Williams, as to how the numbers that you are crunching and representing in the parliament with respect to the living cost relative to people's standard of living, you are out of touch with how that comes down. And so it is for those reasons why when you hear people talk about polls and because I follow the polls, and it has said, for example, the granted the participation is low, very low, and this is a cause for concern. But having said that, according to the poll that was conducted by Don Anderson, Don Anderson is a preeminent pollster in Jamaica. Sometimes though him interpret his the findings of the poll, it leaves a lot of questions. But be that as it may, he made a point that in one of his polling that spoke to the public perception as to which of the two political gangs are showing a more realistic concern for the status of the Jamaican worker. In other words, are genuinely concerned with improving the lot of the Jamaican worker. And them say the PNP have a better rating when it comes to that. Now, me not back for neither side. Me just present the information. Now, I think it's shameful for a government that has been in office now for almost 10 years, and even with a low level of electoral participation, that you are still completely out of touch with the way people live in Jamaica. Remember, the JLP's slogan that it came to the political office with is prosperity. This is a slogan that has done the rounds for certainly more than 15 years, right? Because it was always the messaging of the party once we got into the 2000s, after the 2007 elections. And so one wonders, who's the prosperity for? Because clearly you're not representing the majority of Jamaicans, especially with this kind of reasoning. Because to suggest that you can take $72,000 by and pay as a deposit for your car. First of all, you go in anybody's place with a thing with 72,000, they're running out of that place. And then you tell me, say, you take 3 years to save that kind of money, right? Might as well you did buy some good food with it and thing, right? So we have to be careful. I'm just putting it out there, right? Our political leaders are detached from the reality of the experience of the average Jamaican. Let me hear what you think. You know, if you're there on Facebook or YouTube, you know, jot down your comments and make way. You know, I promise I will respond to all of them. You know, but let me hear what you think about what I think. Now, again, we have to start to look at how policy decisions impact the average Jamaican. It is not sufficient to say, and again, I try, you know, baffle people with the bullshit statistics that, oh, we have the lowest unemployment rate. And yes, I agree that unemployment is measured by in the context of people who are actually looking for jobs. But the Jamaican reality is that there are some 700,000 Jamaicans who are not participating in the labor force. And it is interesting to test their responses as to why they're not participating, right? And the reasons are simple, straightforward, right? We are in an environment where in Jamaica, it has been the norm that companies maintain. We have basically maintained the same plantation approach to wages, wage rates in Jamaica that existed in the immediate colonial period, post-slavery period, right? Where people expected workers to work for nothing or little enough. And so as a consequence of that the thinking of holding wages down has you know prevailed for decades, more than 100 years, based on where we are today. Now, Jamaica is a consuming society. Jamaica is not a productive society. What we produce better than anything else is a service a service economy, right? So what our resource, our best resources are our people, best natural resource. And so politically, both sides are guilty in terms of them not making sufficient investment in the development of the population. And then by extension, we have welded ourselves to the thinking that if you pay people more money, it's going to cause inflation. But you're not considering that the level of inflation that is out there has far outstripped the income earning potential of the average worker. Because when your inflation rates are running at 5 and 6 and 7 and 8%, and wages are locked at 3 and 4%. It means that as a workforce, you are behind the ball, right? The ball are run well left you as far as your living situation is concerned. And so you have to bring wages to be ahead of or in touching distance of your inflation rates, so that you can help develop what is called that savings culture along the lines of the consumption culture, but you also need the consumption to drive the economy because the country is a service area. It's impossible you have a man who work in a restaurant and him work there 6 days a week, and when him girlfriend birthday or whatever, him can't carry pick them go to the same place where him work and sit down and eat and pay for the food because him not earn enough money, right? And so not a lot of Jamaicans can afford to save even the $2,000 where Miss Lady I talk about. Because when you earn $15,000 and $20,000 a week, remember light bill alone will run you easily $20,000 to $30,000 a month, right? You can't buy a little house because you not earn at the income level that you can go apply for your mortgage, so you can buy anyway, right? And these are the facts, right? So one would feel that the political masters would be a little more sensitive to these issues, right? I was in Jamaica the other day, just the one was it, 2 weekends ago, and you look at what is going on out there, Opal Morris Powell, good evening, sweetheart. Good to have you as usual, and share the stream with your friends. Bring them on because we have some stuff here where we want to talk about, and I urge your participation as well. So now we need to change that thing. We need to hold our political masters more responsible, right? Because somebody needs to say to Miss Favour Williams, is that where you go to school, go get a PhD for chat foolishness? Because rubbish you talk. Somebody need for all her to that position, right? So, may I touch the budget thing in another discussion, but I just wanted to ventilate this issue there, because clearly there is a level of detachment from our politicians and policymakers as it relates to them and the general public in Jamaica, and we have to fix that. Now, let's move on to another bigger and more profound topic. Now, unless you're living under a rock, you would be aware that the guard has changed politically in America, here in America. The guard changed big time, right? Yes, Opal is rubbish. I mean, I listened to it, and at first I thought it was a conversation that was overdubbed to reflect that rubbish that she said. But then she was, I listened to her on a program with Dean Jackson Miller, and Dean Jackson Miller, sometimes the journalists them allow them people to get away with it, because I would have thought that Marcus, she worked for RJR, and in spite of everything else, she still have to answer to the organization. But sometimes you have to call out them people for the rubbish of them talk. She attempted to do it, but it was kind of tepid, if you will. And so Favour get away with it because she repeated the foolishness about 3 times in the time that she was on with Dean Jackson. But let's go back. So the Trump administration here in Jamaica, in the United States, have decided to expand on their culture wars, right? The administration has basically decided, and they announced this earlier on this week, that they are rolling back all of the positions that were the actions that were taken with respect to Cuba by the Biden administration. They are going to roll back those decisions. And the significance of this is that under the Biden administration, they had done some, a fair amount of discussion, deliberations, which served to remove Cuba from the list of countries that they considered as state sponsors of terrorism. Now, of course, American government free to do whatever they want to do, right? And but it is the backlash that comes with the decision, because you may or may not be aware of what is called the Helms-Burton legislation passed in the U.S. Congress some decades ago, more than 6 decades ago, which addresses America's treatment of Cuba, the persistent maintenance of sanctions against the Cuban administration, simply because essentially what the U.S. government is trying to do is to punish Cubans for the direction that the Cubans have gone after the revolution of 1959. And one would think that if after 60 years you do something and it now gone away, then it makes sense you persist with it. But these people who are having at the place now have decided to turn back the clock. And so the administration, the current administration's argument is they might write back the arrangements that Biden had created. And so Cuba now back on the list of state sponsors of terrorism. You can't manage Russia in there, you can't manage other enemies elsewhere, but you have strength for Cuba. And by extension, the beneficiary countries that of Cuba's generosity in terms of its medical technology. Now, Jamaica has depended heavily on those relationships over the years. And let me step back a little bit, because to a large extent, sometimes we create our own problems. We became independent in 1962, and in the course of those 63 years, we have only succeeded in deepening the decadence that our political masters have put Jamaicans into. If just for context, in the 1960s when we started, both ourselves and Singapore were at the same level, same type of economy, not necessarily the same economic systems, but the per capita GDP numbers were pretty much the same, give or take about $200 or $300 to the good of Singapore. We had pretty much the same population. I think in that period where our population was about 1.8, 1.1, just about 2.2 million or thereabouts. The Singapore population would have been about 200,000 more than Jamaica, except that Singapore is 10 times smaller than Jamaica. 10 times smaller, right? At the time, Singapore, again, the GDP numbers, the population numbers were thick. 63 years later, where are we? We squandered. Remember, Jamaica is 10 or 12 times bigger than Singapore, right? Which means that we have more resources than Singapore. We have more natural resources than what Singapore has, right? We had pretty much the same population. In the ensuing 63 or so years, Jamaica's population has hobbled to 2.87 million. People tell you about Jamaica population at 3 million, bullcrap. Population is 2.87 million and declining. In fact, in 1976, the Jamaican population our birth rate was recorded as some 31 live births per 100,000 of our population. 31 live births, right? Today, our birth rates have dropped to some 13.7 live births per 100,000 of population. So we have recorded a steep decline in our population, right? Had we continued at the rate, Jamaica would be looking at a population of just about 4.2, 4.5, or just under 5 million Jamaicans, had we maintained the rates. But in 1976, we bought into the argument about two is better than too many. And, you see where we are today. So without a growing population, you cannot run a consuming economy. And we're not a productive economy because our productivity rates are far too low, which is why our dollar don't have no value, right? We foolishly pegged our dollar to the US dollar in the 1970s. That Michael Manley bought into that fool argument. And we have paid dearly for it. In 1969, the Jamaican exchange rate to the US dollar was the equivalent of some 67 cents Jamaican to one US dollar. 67 cents Jamaican to one US dollar. Today, the exchange rate is some 100, just under 160 Jamaican dollars to one US dollar. So we're coming like slavery all over again, where the man them give a piece of pretty cloth and before you look round, them gone with the land. Them give you a promise and we move our dollar until we move our exchange rate to peg it to the US exchange rate under the guise that they were going to flood us with investment, and not one jack shit of investment came into Jamaica. And we still a struggle and a hobble with the same problem some 50 odd years after, right? So it is important that we understand all of these things. So we squandered all of the opportunities that we had then. And so we can't even provide healthcare for our people. And as a consequence, we fell onto the relationships that we had with Cuba. Now, Cuba has been very good to Jamaica, if you know anything about the history of the relationships. In fact, Jamaica, certainly over the last 30 years, as the last 25 years, has enjoyed a tremendous reputation as a track and field powerhouse, right? But a lot of that reputation was built on the back of the G.C. Foster College of Sports and Physical Education. And that institution was a gift to Jamaica by the Cuban government. The benefit to us from that gift is the fact that the institution turns out coaches, particularly track and field coaches. And today, almost every school, certainly every secondary school and primary school, a significant number of our primary schools who have a sporting program have coaches who are graduates from this institution. And so the prowess that we boast on the track is largely the result not only of the efforts of the athletes, but the fact that we have qualified coaches, and it is the G.C. Foster College of Sports and Physical Education thing. So to understand, I'm giving you all of this background so you understand the significance of the relationship between Jamaica and Cuba. And so what Cuba produces, Cuba has a literacy rate of pretty close to some 97%, 97, 98%, right? Majority of Cubans at least have a first degree, right? And so what Cuba have plenty of is qualified people. And one cohort of this qualified Cuban population is the medical fraternity, dentists, doctors, nurses. And so they have been helping out other Caribbean islands by providing them with doctors. Jamaica, we can barely stop a stale bread cat, right? In Jamaica. You know, we talk about, oh, we bring down the debt to GDP ratio to less than 70%. But we can't pay our doctors and nurses. And so as a result, most of the people who graduate from the institutions in Jamaica as nurses and doctors, the first plane them can catch the man pan, them gone. Because as a country, we're not paying these professionals, to retain them in the country. And as a consequence, we have to now depend on the Cubans to provide this thing. So the current American administration basically said, if you're a Caribbean island and you have used them people there. In fact, the previous Biden administration had addressed this issue she had addressed this issue. The Biden administration had claimed that the Cubans were involved in human trafficking, and they essentially came after the Bajans. And I'm gonna play a little tape here where Prime Minister Maya Motley in Barbados is addressing this issue. Here we go.
This matter with the Cubans and the nurses should tell us everything that we need to know. Barbados does not currently have Cuban medical staff or Cuban nurses, but I will be the first to go to the line and to tell you that we could not get through the pandemic without the Cuban nurses and the Cuban doctors. I will also be the first to tell you that we paid them the same thing that we pay Bajans, and that the notion, as was peddled not just by this government in the US, but the previous government, that we were involved in human trafficking by engaging with the Cuban nurses was fully repudiated and rejected by us. Now, I don't believe that we have to shout across the seas, but I am prepared, like others in this region, that if we cannot reach a sensible agreement on this matter, then if the cost of it is the loss of my visa to the US, then so be it. But what matters to us is principles. And I have said over and over that principles only mean something when it is inconvenient to stand by it. Now, we don't have to shout, but we can be resolute. And I therefore look forward to standing with my CARICOM brothers. I wish I could say brothers and sisters, but brothers, to be able to ensure that we explain that what the Cubans have been able to do for us, far from approximating itself to human trafficking, has been to save lives and limbs and sight for many a Caribbean person.
All right. So that was Prime Minister Maya Motley, Barbados, PM. And you listen to Maya, and it takes me back to the 1970s. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Oh, I miss those times. Because, I hear Michael Manley made a statement in an address to the nation years ago. Michael said he wants to as Jamaicans, that we stand up and walk proud through the world rather than we are crawling on our hands and knees and begging for favors. It's a very profound commentary from Michael Mann. Extremely profound commentary. You don't want to be crawling around the world through the world on your hands and knees, right? And so there are things that is worth fighting for. Now, the current US administration basically make it clear that they're going to sanction countries who no follow them edict, these dictates. So all of a sudden, the United States president is also a president of Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. And so them anything with them say, Allah, right? Now, listen, me not pretend to be advising anybody, you know. Me just ventilate the issue, right? But me know what me stand. Eh? The reality is that the world, it's not about that the world is changing. The world has changed. And so we still operate in a geopolitical environment where relationships are important. Maybe the people who are here, you know, believe that them are superior to the minions, you know, particularly Caribbean people. And maybe they get away with that because the leaders of the Caribbean over the years have allowed them to believe that, right? When Barack Obama did come to Jamaica and tell the elected government of the people of Jamaica as to who them can have relationships with, Henry Kissinger attempted to do that with the Manley administration, and when they never got anywhere with it, they formed an alliance with Siaga, who basically helped bring Jamaica down to its knees. And we continue to be bowing and scraping on our knees as a result of acquiescing to those requests back in those days, right? Now, the wholeness administration is on record in terms of how it sees itself relative to the other members of CARICOM. Because if you won't even give credence to the Caribbean Court of Justice. We talk about us wanting to go it ourselves to become a republic, but we want to be a republic where we will maintain the accoutrements that come with being a colony, you know, being a member of the Commonwealth. So you want to still have access to the Privy Council, because if you move away from that, the current Prime Minister of Jamaica is a member of the Privy Council in England. It is an automatic appointment once you are a head of state, and a head of state as a member of the Commonwealth, right? So if you depart from the UK Commonwealth system and become a republic, some of these accoutrements, these trappings, they go. There's no more knighthood and all them kind of thing. The Privy Council membership, all of these go, right? And so for these reasons, you know, we create these conundrum. We're not supporting our regional body that we are ensconced in. We are part of the Caribbean community. And here is an opportunity to stand with your Caribbean brothers and sisters. Because guess what? The same knife for joke dog in the past, right? And so if you believe, say, that by virtue of the fact that you are going to kowtow to these people, that they're gonna treat you any differently, all they are doing is laughing after you behind your back. As a country, we have to take a stand, right? As somebody, Genevieve said, Prime Minister Motley is the present day Michael Manley. I couldn't agree with you more, Genevieve. You know, and as an Opal, I'm in agreement with you that you know, Motley is essentially where we stand, and she declared that she's with her Caribbean brothers. Ralph Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines was the first to basically burst this argument when he said he will not be cowed into making decisions that works against the best interests of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And if it is that the United States is going to sanction him or Grenada or the St. Vincent and the Grenadines by visa sanctions, then so be it. So be it, right? The Prime Minister Rowley from Trinidad and Tobago have also echoed the same sentiments, and now the Miss Motley the same thing, right? And so it is now left to us. There was a time when Jamaica was the center of thought, consciousness, and thought and culture in the region. And so we are, all of us across the diaspora and across the Caribbean, we are waiting, people are waiting for hear where Andrew Holness, I have to say Andrew Holness is the leader of Jamaica. Whether you vote for him, yes or no, him is the Prime Minister of Jamaica. So him is all the way Prime Minister. And so, Mr. Prime Minister, you need to say a talk. Make we hear what you say. What is your position, right? Because if at no other time as a country we need leadership, and now we need it. It is also important to hear from Mr. Goldie. What is your position? Were you to win this thing whenever? What is your position? Make we know your position from now. Because let me put it this way. As Opal, you said it, our healthcare is a disaster, right? It is a disaster. Our healthcare system, services, disaster. Not because we have bad nurses or doctors, but because as a country, we never made sufficient investment in developing our medical facilities and our healthcare system. We never did that. So it's not a current administration problem. It's a Jamaica problem. We have for decades. Granted, we went on a grand misadventure in the 1970s that we're paying the price for it. Apart from the manly misadventures, the Americans and those who destabilized Jamaica had whole heap of help, thanks to Mr. Siaga. Because Siaga was a big part of that, right? That helped pull down Jamaica on its face, right? People don't know that. When in 1974, the volume of foreign direct capital investment in Jamaica stood at some 24 to 26 million US dollars a month. And after the destabilization efforts took root after 1976, foreign direct investment in Jamaica fell to 4 million US dollars. And so with that kind of foreign direct inflows, we couldn't even buy a gallon of kerosene oil. You can't nothing without the money to do nothing. You can't import nothing. We can't import no rice and flour because we did stop encourage people to grow their own food. And now we depend on rice and flour. We have depend on USAID free food to feed Jamaican people. And we have never recovered from that. Right? So it's not a JLP thing or a PNP thing. It is a leadership problem in Jamaica that for decades we did not provide the level of investment in creating a public medical facility that Jamaicans can feel proud of. And so as a consequence, we have to go around with our hat in our hand and I beg people. Me remember me there at Trinidad in 1973 when Manley come down to Trinidad and I borrow money from Eric Williams, the premier Trinidad Tobago at the time. And me tell you, it's shame like a dog because the Trinidad and them no top take it costly, right? So we are responsible for our own situation, and we have to work assiduously now to change that. So where do we go from here? But the first thing is, let's get a read from the Prime Minister of Jamaica. Are we going to be bullied to say, send back, run where all like Cuban doctor them and nurse, and then the hospital system that we have in Jamaica is going to fall down in tatters? Is that what is going to happen, Mr. Prime Minister? Give me a small talk. Make I hear what is going on, right? The other side of it is, Mr. Tufton, their road, I eat street food and thing and a big public relations thing, right? What is your plan for the healthcare system in Jamaica going forward so that we don't have to be at the behest of them people who believe that because, you know, because them no look like me and you, them color different, them can dictate to you. It's almost like them are reimposed slavery power as black people, right? And so it's where them say, you do as we say, or you can't come back here, right? That them are, so Mr. Prime Minister, give me a talk. Tell me what you are saying. Because when I hear, when I see, right, the silence is deafening. Absolutely deafening. You know, we have been here before. Are we going to allow this kind of situation, right? You see the bullying, it's going all over the place. It's like a set of politicians who are fling all kind of mud after every wall in the house, and them I hope some of them stick, right? Granted that some of these things are merely distractions that distract the American public because them have other things are going on at the table. And so the more of them things you throw, people will not be paying attention to the major issues, right? But it is important. It is important, as you said, Opal, silence is complicit. You know, silence can also be complicit. You know, Jamaica, though, we are lose it. You know, Genevieve Barrett made a point. Normally, Jamaica is leading from the front, but we have lost our voice. We are forgetting our history, and we are forgetting who we are. And an excellent point. You know, we Jamaicans who have the ability to and have the access need to demand that those who choose to lead us, to represent us, that they speak for us and that we are all speaking in the same voice. It is embarrassing that we always seem to be running in the shadows of others because we don't have any official positions. Technically, the way how we practice politics is about personal positions. It is about how we personally benefit because we are attending to our own personal positions rather than positions that operate for the benefit of the majority of Jamaicans. Our rural hospital systems are in tatters, right? If these Cuban doctors leave, what is going to fill the vacuum that they have created? If it is a situation where we will rejigger the whole thing so that we can retain a larger number of our own medical personnel that we produce as a country, we need to have some discussions. And so Maya Motley is correct. What we need to do is to come together as a group of Caribbean people and to explain this argument about Caribbean people are participate in a what you call human trafficking is bullshit, right? And these white people who claim say they will run this administration here, they're in no position to make those arguments, and we are giving value to those arguments when we sit on power mouth. Nobody don't want to answer these people. I tell them that a crappy attack, right? People, we have to look at the resources. America now do nothing for nobody, you know. Let me make it clear. Because people, them money attack like say, America don't do nothing for nobody. America only do something for you where them can benefit from, right? And so when Barack Obama did come down to Jamaica some years ago and I talk about, oh, be careful how you get involved with the Chinese. He need to ask himself the question, did you see that Jamaica need help in some of the areas that China help? And why, if you did see it, why you don't never do something about it? Why is only now, when the man them run roughshod over on that you are come and run him out and attack, right? Why is it that you attack now? Eh? And so these set of jokers who are come with the same kind of foolishness, you have to push it back. My concern though is that, you know, I listen, I'm learning that the current ambassador, Her Excellency Audrey Marks, that she leaves at the end of this month, right? You know, she had a pretty good grounding in terms of how the Washington set work. And so I'm a little concerned because if she leaves, who is going to handle those deliberations, right? These are people that you want to at least be operating with them from a position of history, that you know them, you know the idiosyncrasies that drive the way how they think. And so I'm concerned. I'm concerned that in the first instance, our political leadership in Jamaica is too silent, too long. This thing has been out there now long enough to have, required and I've had a response, but the silence is deafening. I don't expect the Minister of Foreign Affairs to speak to it. I expect to hear a little too from the Minister of Health because the portfolio that is immediately affected is his. But most importantly, the Prime Minister needs to speak to the nation with respect to how we're going to deal with this thing. What is the approach that as a country we're going to take to deal with this thing? Because it is going to have implications for Jamaica and specifically Jamaicans. And if you believe, it's not only, well, them done cut off the World Bank and IDB aid and all of them stuff there, right? Granted, the United States is going to have its own fair share of problems in the coming months, but that is an aside. Them is a bigger economy, so them can deal with the shocks. In Jamaica, healthcare is a critical issue. Jamaicans have a very high rate of Jamaicans who have hypertension, who we're seeing a rush of people with cancer, right? People with diabetes. These are a lot of these are illnesses that are, preventable illnesses to a large extent, or treatable, but without the healthcare support mechanism in place, we gonna have some difficulties. This is an issue that is a matter of life and death for Jamaicans, right? And so it's important that we get some answers, right? It is important that we get some answers. And Lenford Williams, the program is actually being streamed on YouTube as well. So feel free to, you can always go back and watch it as well. But again, let us understand that this is not a political critique of the administration. That is nowhere what my intentions are. What we are doing here is ventilating the issue so that more Jamaicans understand what it is that is on the horizon, right? I remember when the Dudus thing broke, um, a number of Jamaicans were impacted because of the similar approach to imposing sanctions against Jamaicans, right? And so some people will lose them visa and all kind of other things, and some of the little bit of help we normally get from America that will dry up. Well, it start dry up already. So the question that it begs is, and remember, we peg our currency to the US currency, right? But we really not get no benefit from it. And the more once the currency pegged to these people's currency, when them talk about sanction you, them are sanction you through them money, right? And so if a FIDEM exchange rate you have to work with, them can grind you with a shaft easy, easy, easy. Maybe it's time we start to look at forming better alliances. Maybe we need to look at the arrangements that is being represented with China and Brazil and this new economic bloc that is being developed, right? Maybe we need to start to look in a different direction, because again, the world is not static, right? And my mother always tell me, say, "Passing christening picnic first," right? So we have a responsibility as Jamaicans to look out for what is in our own best interests, right? And that is to create the kind of environment that will allow the majority, a majority of Jamaicans, the best possible life that they can have for themselves. And in this context, the healthcare issue is a critical issue and something that we need to pay attention to. I would love to to continue to get you guys feedback. Share the program with your friends if necessary, and let us continue the discussion even afterwards. Now, the final topic I want to take on is the track and field thing. Of course, unless you live under a rock, you would have heard that the Jamaica National Stadium, the track was resurfaced recently, right? And the concern was that the stadium may not have been ready for champs, which comes up in another couple of weeks, right? And of course, the stadium was resurfaced, and prior to that, the stadium had a number one ranking, right? Let me just find this information here. So the stadium was resurfaced, and from what I'm gathering, it appears that in the course of its resurfacing, the World Athletic Federation, apparently, it is felt that the track is going to now be downgraded from a level 1 track to a level 2. Now you might wonder what all of this mean, right? And we're gonna come to that thing. With a level 1 track, it means that you can run all kinds of international athletic meets on your track. It means that ratification for records and so on and so forth. Athletes' performances are going to the assessment of your athletes' performances at the international level. The ratification goes through a lot quicker. Now, the question that it begs is that how does this affect us? This is the track, right? Of course, if you're not familiar with what it looked like before, the stadium track is usually it's the track itself is usually blue, right? And here is another picture of the people from the Jamaica track and field fraternity or the stadium facility. I think this is Babsy Granger and the Migley here, and whomever else. But you know, we digress. So the track is resurfaced, and there is a Grand Slam track meet that is set to run off right after champs, right? And so the operators or the promoters of that event were a party to they were a party to or participated in this refurbishment. And what was pointed out is that if the while their work that they did is consistent with the standards required by the agency, the athletics World Athletics governing body. What is, let me play a little thing here just to bring the issue to the front. Here we go. All right. All right. So that's I really wanted to play that part because there's this discussion that is going the rounds that the 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 track is not certified as a level 1, and that the the you know who get shafted and ray and whatever, right? Now, as Lockerbie said, Lockerbie was part of he's part of the Michael Johnson track meet that is coming up in a couple of weeks. In fact, there's an international track meet that kicks off right there in Jamaica. First edition of the meet kicks off there at the National Stadium. And so they contributed in part to the cost of the relaying of the track. In fact, it was a condition of for Jamaica hosting the event that the track surface be relayed, and it was due the relaying as well. It was overdue. However, it's a different company that has done this thing, and as he just pointed out there, it is not because they have resurfaced the track or changed the color why the rating for the track has gone down from 1 to 2. That is not the reason. As he pointed out, the standards have now changed. In fact, if you follow track and field currently, what you will notice is that there is as much emphasis on field events as there are on track events in the global track sphere currently. And so what that means is the track that we have, the facility we have at the National Stadium, has to go through some significant changes in order to now qualify as a level 1 facility. And he pointed out that the cycle track, which was something that was useful when Noah used to row the ark, right? When Noah run him ark, the cycle track was a thing. It's not a thing anymore. People now have velodromes where you have indoor cycling velodromes where cycling takes place. So it's not in an outdoor environment. And so the world athletics is now requiring that Jamaica need to get rid of the cycle track. And you're gonna need to add at least 1 or 2 more lanes to the track all the way around it, right? You're also gonna have to add more run-up areas for long jump, right? Long jump, triple jump, and so on. So there is a requirement for a reconfiguring of the National Stadium facility. Now, the question that is begging here is how will we deal with that? Because in the first instance, it is clear that the National Stadium, as it is currently, is outdated. There are, I mean, I was at Champs last year, and me I go at Champs for me, a little boy, I wear short pants, 1969. That's a long time that, right? And the stadium is the same way that it was in 1969. It was a ball boy for a KC football match, Manning Cup match between 1969 and 1972, right? And the same facilities that existed in those years, between 1969 and 1973, is the same God Almighty thing that is there now, right? The facility is outdated. Now, for Jamaica, having the kind of profile that it has as a track and field country, it is a disgrace. I mean, I care who are vexed. I love Babsy Grange in terms of our input, but we think we'll pass the stage now where Babsy Grange can handle this, right? The Jamaica as a country refuses to make investment in public facilities that benefits its population. That's just a fact. The Minister of Tourism, Sweetie Jar, is on record when he said that. He said, we not build nothing. We not going to build no facility for do no music and all them kind of things. And by the same talk, the same argument extend to the National Stadium. This stadium is outdated. For Jamaica, that is regarded as one of, if not the top track and field country in the world over the last 25, 30 years. What we use to produce those results is an embarrassment, right? A Sweetie Jar, we call him, look on him face, if you don't see like a mouth full of sweetie, him jar them puff up all the while. But him say, we not build nothing, right? And so, if what that is saying, is that here is an administration that is not committed to developing the resources, the facilities that extend to developing the population. And so we boast and we big up ourselves, we put up all kind of statue around the stadium when what we need is a stadium, right? It's either we're going to decide, say, we're going to close down the use of the stadium for the next 12 months and lick it down and build around where we have, or we build something else. And we don't, I forget government to put up the money in, because I believe that there is enough money available. You could build a facility, a world-class facility, and you could put out invite private capital to come in and deal with that. So when people go there, they have to pay the economic cost of going through the turnstile because the investors are looking for a return on their investment. Why is it so difficult for us as Jamaicans to take these long range approaches? We look at things only in the context of election cycles, right? That's all we do. We politicians run for election every 5 years is an election. So the first year of a win, you celebrate. The last year of the 5 years, you're out on the hustings and look for try win again. So you only do 3 years worth of work. And in the course of that, you're not doing nothing that benefit the population in a real meaningful way. A country with the stature that Jamaica has, right? We shouldn't be here. Eh? We shouldn't have to pass around the hat, forget the stadium facility resurface. And the same administration is boasting, oh, we have reduced our debt to GDP ratio to 60%. So what we do with the money? What we are doing with it? When are you going to spend some of that money that benefits the same taxpayers that pay you? Eh? The US debt to GDP ratio is 122%. Right? The US debt is 122% of its GDP. Right? And we are going like say, by having a debt to GDP ratio of 60%, which means that you're 2 times better off than America. Basically, that way I say, but we can't find enough money to stop a stale bread cat. Right? But we can pay the minister them 30 and how much $1 million a year. And the same public servant them will do the work, will run the ministries, a chop and see it in them again. Them barely have enough money to take bus to go back to work the next day. Anything can go so? Eh? Jamaica, we can do much better than women. And these are conversations that I believe it is central that we have these conversations, right? We have to start to talk to each other where we put all of these issues on the table, right? It's not about we balance a checkbook, but we now balance people's lives, right? It's one thing that we say, it's not even hand to mouth open, right? Because they might look after themselves, right? All of the MP them get something like $30 million to spend, ball around money every year, plus them pay, right? And then pass on the contract them to them friend them and all of that. And the people who supposed to benefit from it don't get no benefit. We have to, as a country, do better than that. Because we're better than that, right? As I say, me no care who are the government, me no really care, right? My position is a very simple one, right? How do we create a socio-economic environment that redounds to a larger proportion of Jamaicans, right? How do we create an environment that encourages the little young boy and young girl who will leave school, right, to want to stay at home in Jamaica, right? How do we create the kind of environment that will encourage people like myself to want to return to Jamaica, to help to build a place where you are not going to be judged by your political party, but by the size of your ideas and the workability of those ideas, right? That's the challenge that we need to present, right? We're better than where we are. We're better than where we are, Again, before we wrap up, because, we just have another 5 or so minutes to go. I really want us to just examine where we are. If you have, let's get feedback from everybody. If you are watching this on YouTube, give me your comments, right? Let us carry these conversations, right? If you're there on YouTube again and subscribe to the channel, subscribe so that when we have them program, you get a chance to be first up in terms of thing. But we have to be willing to build a Jamaica that is better for a greater majority of Jamaicans. It shouldn't matter how you vote in an election. When election done, whosoever win, whosoever lose, and the country must come together and pool resources and move forward. That is my desire. That is my fervent wish, right? We must start to look at a Jamaica that is going to work for a greater number of us. How we're going to strengthen the institutions that are in existence, right? How we are going to plug resources to the school system, right? How when we have our youngsters who go to university and them go to medicine or nursing, that them willing to stay in a Jamaica and work because them can see that they are being rewarded for their efforts, right? Recognized and paid properly so them can live off of the profession that they were prepared for within the Jamaican socio and school system, right? Let us try and challenge ourselves. I agree with you, Wopal. We're too tribalistic. I mean, we were worse than this, so there is, to a large extent, we're seeing some changes, but it's not far-reaching enough. There was a time when we couldn't even have this conversation here because it would have been a war. People are threatening and all that. We have come a long way, but we still have so much further that we can go because we're better than this, right? We're better. It don't matter if me and you agree. Here's what we have to do. We can agree that we're going to have a conversation, right? That and part of that conversation will go work because we are listening to each other, even if we disagree, right? And when the time comes to put out ideas, we are not afraid to share ideas because that's who we are. Let us challenge our political leaders, right? Let's challenge them. Mr. Holness, you need to give a talk about this Cuba thing. Where do you stand with the remaining leadership in the Caribbean? Where do you stand relative to their position vis-a-vis what is being demanded and dictated by these people here in America? Is it that we are going to just lie down and take it and F off with the people who are negatively affected by the decisions? Is this where we want to be? Yeah. So, Mr. Wallace, you have some question for answer. Let's hope to, in respect of the track thing, the Ministry of Sports will have a say. We need to, because from what the man say now, we now get back the level 1 status until we make the improvements that he pointed out that are required. I want if people up on social media bash the government, both Babsy Grange, do this and whatever. But the reality is that this was something that was coming in terms of the ranking because the stadium is unfit. So when are we going to fix that? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time that we have for this evening. It has been a pleasure sharing with you. I know it's a kind of a monologue. Thanks for the people who participated. Opally, grandmother told you right. We those were the tribalistic days. We have come a long way, but we still have a far, far way that we have to go. It has been a pleasure. Join me again next week, Thursday, same time, same station. And if you're here in South Florida, check me out at Valencia's restaurant on Saturday from 5 to 10 o'clock in the evening, where we're gonna have my art show. It's called Rhythm and Color, and featuring quite a range of art from myself and a couple of other artists who are participating as well. So look forward to seeing you. Again, it has been a pleasure. Opal, thanks again for your participation and joining. Thanks for all of you who were listening under the cover. Feel free to offer your comments afterwards. And I look forward to sharing with you again next time. Until such time then, let me just say, Jah guide, it has been a pleasure sharing with you this evening. And until next week, big respect.